Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point on AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Program is Focal Point. The network is AFR Talk. Just had a column posted at rightlyconcerned.com. I just sent out a tweet to that effect. Got a column. I'm going to walk through some of the content of that column with you right now as we begin the program together today. Now, some of you may be familiar with what's happening over in the UK, where the Prime Minister there, David Cameron. Now, David Cameron is out at sea when it comes to gay marriage. He's capitulated. He caved. He calls himself a conservative, but he cooperated in the effort to create fake marriages, Naugahyde marriages, based on the infamous crime against nature. That's what we used to call the act of sodomy, the infamous crime against nature. It is still a crime. It is still infamous. It is still against nature. And we have gotten so far off beam, off frequency now. We've gone so nonlinear that we have elevated relationships that are based on this act, this criminal act. We've elevated them to the place where we're actually calling them marriages. And David Cameron, he cooperated with that. He collaborated with that. He was complicit in that, in the legalization of same-sex marriage in the UK. And by the way, the Queen signed it into law, so it's official now in the UK. Hang on just a second. Disconnected myself again. I am back. Now, but they've got another problem in the UK that not a lot of people know about. We've talked about it here on this program, so you've got kind of a head start on this issue, but we've got the same problem here. We're just not talking about it, and we're just not dealing with it, and that is the exposure. And by the way, this segment is going to be adult content, so if you've got young children that are sort of in earshot, just want to give you a heads up from now to the bottom of the hour, we're going to be talking about content that you may want to protect tender ears from. It's adult content. It's mature conduct. This is content. This is definitely a PG-13 segment on Focal Point today. But here's the deal. What they are dealing with in the UK, and they're honest enough to actually face this problem, is the devastating impact of internet pornography on children. Now, internet pornography has a devastating impact on adults. Make no mistake about it. You just think of Ted Bundy. Remember his interview with James Dobson? He started off with the softcore stuff that almost every male in America has been exposed to. It's almost impossible not to be exposed to it at some point in your life. But after a while, as he became a consumer of that and consumed more and more and more of it, got addicted to it, pretty soon it wasn't enough. He graduated to more extreme forms of pornography, and finally that wasn't enough. And so he began to act out and actually killed probably 42 women over the course of his adult life. And all of it, he says, was rooted in pornography and his addiction to pornography. Now, that's an extreme case, but the point here is the same dynamics that drove Ted Bundy to do what he did. They are working in every male and every female. I mean, they can be addicted to pornography as well. About a third of those that are addicted to porn now apparently are women, according to the research I've seen. So it has an effect on both sexes. And those same dynamics are at work in anybody who is exposed to and consumes porn, and same dynamics involved in anyone who's addicted to it, can't pull himself away from it. Now, not all men are going to go the lengths to which Ted Bundy went, obviously, but they're going to have to fight something. They're going to have to resist something. There's going to be something that's pushing them in that direction, and they're going to have to push back against it, or they will wind up in the same place that he did. Now, what the UK is dealing with is this absolutely disastrous, catastrophic, toxic, moral waste, a land of pornography that's being created because young children are being exposed to this pornography over the internet. Got a piece here from The Guardian, which is a liberal left-wing rag in the UK, and it's all about how David Cameron, is going to crack down on what he calls the corroding influence, end quote, of online pornography in order to protect the innocence of young children in the UK. And I'm going to talk here in a second about what he is going to do about it, but I want you to be aware of the extent of the problem in the UK, and that's why I'm glad that the Prime Minister of Britain, I give him kudos for this. He's taken this on. He's taking steps. He's setting a benchmark I think the United States needs to follow, and I'll talk about that as we discuss this topic here in this next segment. Now, you've got this huge problem, as I mentioned, in the UK, of porn addiction, sex crimes, but not just among adults, with teenagers. This is according to a story I read this morning in the Daily Mirror, one of the leading newspapers in the UK. The number of under 18s, the number of juveniles, the number of teenagers under the age of 18 who have committed sex crimes has jumped 40% in the last 3 years, largely due to unrestricted access to pornography on the internet. I repeat, sex crimes committed by juveniles, not committed by adults, not committed by sex offenders, committed by juveniles under the age of 18, has jumped 40% in the UK in the last 3 years, and they attribute the bulk of that to exposure to online pornography. 40% of teens report that they have texted explicit pictures of themselves to others, often with disastrous consequences. Those pictures get out. They are sent from one smartphone and cell phone to another. Pretty soon everybody in the school has seen it. Everybody in the school is talking about it. The girl is humiliated. They've even had instances where girls have committed suicide because a picture that they had texted of themselves got into circulation. And 40% of teens have done something like this in the UK. And listen to this. There have been more than 5,000 formal investigations into juvenile sex crimes in the last 3 years. Been 5,000 formal investigations into sex assaults committed by juveniles. And there are probably many more than that. These are the ones that just have been reported and where they've got enough information to be able to launch a formal investigation. Now, almost all of the police jurisdictions in the UK report that sex crimes have been committed in their jurisdictions by 11, 12, and 13-year-olds. I repeat, almost every jurisdiction, they call them forces there, I think there's 62 or something like that in the UK, almost every one of them report that sex crimes have been committed in their jurisdictions by 11, 12, and 13-year-old boys. And the victims are often under the age of 10. So it's a catastrophic and it's a toxic problem in the UK. A former child television star says this is turning the UK into, quote, a moral wasteland, end quote. And some of these jurisdictions are reporting that those that have been responsible, have perpetrated these sex crimes, are as young as 5 years old. You have 5-year-olds committing sex crimes in the UK. Now, obviously, they are just imitating. They're not sexually mature. They're not sexually functioning. They are just imitating what they have seen on the internet at the age of 5 and acting it out. Here's one story about a 15-year-old boy who was obsessed with porn. He just was sent to jail for 3 years just last week. He and a 14-year-old friend bound, gagged, and raped a 14-year-old girl. So where do you think they got that idea? Well, they did not get it from watching Leave It to Beaver reruns on TV Land. There's one sexual health nurse that's quoted in this story. She talked about a 13-year-old girls, plural, number of them who come into his clinic at 13, and they talk about the pressure that's being placed on them by their boyfriends to engage in extreme and degrading sexual experiences. It was interesting. When I was typing up the column this morning, instead of writing boy friends, I left out the R, and what I spelled out was boy fiends. Turns out that is actually much closer to the truth. Now, Iceland is looking at banning online pornography altogether, just getting rid of it, not letting it into the country. They're going to be the first Western nation to do it, and hopefully not the last. Now, Cameron's focus is on the exposure of children to pornography. And so what he is doing, what David Cameron has done, is he has established a policy to crack down on online pornography. And here's the way it's going to work. Every household in Britain, which is connected to the internet, every household in Britain that's connected to the internet will by default be blocked from accessing internet porn. So any household that wants to pipe that raw sewage into their homes will have to make a deliberate choice to deactivate these family-friendly filters. And all the internet service providers are participating in this. And this is what the Daily Mail says. No, this is what the Prime Minister says. All of the internet service providers have rewired their technology so that once your filters are installed, they will cover any device connected to your home internet account. No more hassle of downloading filters for every device, just one-click protection, one click to protect your whole home and keep your children safe. Children, tech-savvy kids won't have a way around it. The filters will only be able to be changed by the account holder, who by policy has to be an adult. Now, the question is, can we do the same thing here in America? Now, the answer is obviously yes. Of course we can. Our Constitution permits this. Our Constitution as given to us by the founders. Because as soon as somebody starts talking about this in the United States, blocking internet pornography, keeping it by default out of homes, everybody's going to start screaming about the First Amendment. Now, in the UK, what they've done is they're going to allow whoever is the adult who is the account holder will be able to deactivate those filters. So if they want to pump that stuff into the homes, they're still going to be able to do it, but they're going to have to make a deliberate choice to do it. The default position in the entire UK is going to be it's blocked unless you go to the trouble to deactivate that filter. Now, I've been over this before, but the pornographers in the United States hide behind the First Amendment and the freedom of speech plank. It was not intended by the founders to do anything but protect vigorous and robust political speech. When they were talking about freedom of speech, they were talking about political speech. They wanted robust political debate. Nobody to be silenced, nobody to be sent to their room, nobody to be thrown in jail for what they believe in the political opinions that they express. That was the purpose of the First Amendment. The founders never intended that to provide a shelter for pornography, for obscenity, vulgarity, or even profanity. And the founding fathers would be rolling over in their parchment to see the way in which activist judges have shredded and mangled the Constitution out of all recognition to give protection to behaviors which no rational society should ever tolerate. And by the way, I've said this before, taking your clothes off and having sex in front of a camera is not speech. It's conduct, it's behavior, and the free speech plank gives no protection whatsoever to that kind of behavior. So what we are looking for in America is the great need of the hour is for American statesmen who, inspired by David Cameron's example, will work to protect America's young children from the ravages of porn. The question is, where are they? Focal Point, AFR Talk.